Yeah, so welcome everybody to this live chat for the Wise Move Society. And we have these calls, chats every Tuesday at 5 o'clock CEE, Central European Time. I better speak it out and not try to say the acronym. And they're just a great way to talk to different people, find out what their experiences have been, and learn from each other. So I've invited Nicolene Huizenga, and she's a friend and a colleague of mine here in the Netherlands. And I think, Nicolene, I'm going to be getting you to introduce yourself in a minute. Before I do that, I guess I'll introduce myself briefly, Tatiana, then I'll turn over to you so you can introduce yourself, and then turn it over to Nicolene. All right. And yeah, so I have to admit, I'm a little bit scattered in my thoughts because I've just gotten in from a training today that didn't go the way we had hoped it would go. And so I'm trying to recover. It was all to do with technology, and it still can go wrong, people. It still can go wrong. Anyway, yeah, I'm a trainer, facilitator. I also do this for Wise Move Society. I'm also a thought leader for Wise Move Society. And what drew me to this platform is in a conversation that I had with Ingen, that I really have realized in the last few years that those of us who are 50 plus are tending to get shortchanged in terms of career development. And even though we might have 20 years, 25 years more to work, there is a considerable amount of ageism in the workplace, stereotypical thinking. So this platform is really here to support the 50 plusers in developing, maybe starting a new journey, recreating themselves, to find new ways in order to have the meaning and purpose in their lives that they really want to have. And so with that, I'm going to turn over the mic to Tatiana, and for you to introduce yourself, Tatiana, and then in a minute, or after Nicoline has, then we'll also be able to have a short intro for the group that's here as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mary Jane. Yes,
Yeah.
we had a bumpy start, but for me, it's like it's a nice way to break the ice. So that's wonderful. So I'm Tatiana Rowson. I am a social psychologist and a social gerontologist, and I am an academic and researcher. And my area of research is pretty much midlife and beyond. So really looking at those transitions that happen as we age, and how we can make the most of the opportunities ahead of us, overcoming, of course, the challenges that comes our way as well. And I'm really delighted, Nicoline, you joining us today, because we talk a lot about entrepreneurship and can become very conceptual or far distance if we're not really bringing the stories to illustrate how does that take place. So without further ado, I'm delighted to invite you, and I'll pass our virtual mic to you, Nicoline, to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tatiana. Well, hi everyone. My name is Nicolene Huizenga. I'm Dutch, so don't try to pronounce my last name because it's very Dutch. I am an intuitive business mentor, and I am a human design coach, and I help mainly solopreneurs, as I call them, to be successful with their businesses and running them with ease and joy and being wildly profitable by just being their unapologetic self. And in that sense, I love your theme of 50 plus women, because especially when we're over 50, it gets easier to be ourselves and to be authentic. So I love being here. So thank you for inviting me.
And I want to say hi to Deborah from Victoria, Canada. Deborah's also one of our trainers, influencers, as we call them. Rabia, also a lovely friend, I'd like to call you, and colleague, training colleague, and coaching colleague from The Hague. Julie, you also have your own business working with entrepreneurs as well. And I see Paulina has joined us also. And Paulina, I've gotten to know through the Professional Women's Network. a group that we have here in the Netherlands as well. So welcome everybody. And Nicoline, I want to kickstart. I want you to kickstart really on the motivation, because I think this is a really big question that people have when they're transitioning or thinking about transitioning from a career in a corporate or an organization to becoming an entrepreneur. Yeah. Can you share with us, and it doesn't have to be really short, but what was your motivation, if you feel comfortable with that, and what was the journey like in the beginning? And then we'll move on. All right.
All right. So this is a funny story. So thank you for asking, because for many people who work in corporate and watch other people taking the step towards entrepreneurship, they think like, oh, they have this big dream of becoming an entrepreneur and being, successful and bringing their thing to the world, whatever it is. But the funny thing is, when I started, it's now over 12 years ago, I never thought of myself as being an entrepreneur. I didn't. I worked for a training and coaching company for 16 years. And at some point, I got a comment from someone who said, wouldn't you like to start your own business? And I was like, I don't know. But then a second person asked me, and they didn't know that they had asked the same question because they were all colleagues. And the second person at some point, I think it was a few weeks later, said, why don't you start your own business? And I was like, that's funny, because a few weeks ago, I had that question too. And then, well, like that normally happens, I had a third person after a couple of more weeks asking like, oh, why don't you start your own business? And at that point, I was like, yeah, why don't I? So there was no like big desire or big dream or what, it wasn't there. So at some point I was thinking, why don't I start my own business? Because I have nothing to lose. I have my qualifications, I have my certifications. All I need is me, a laptop, an internet connection, and my network. That's basically all I need. And I discussed it with my husband at some point, like, I'm thinking of starting my own business. And he said, oh, you should. It's going to be great. I just know. And I was like, okay, you seem to have a lot of faith in me. Because at that point, I was still a bit like, perhaps, I don't know. But then, gradually I grew into the idea of, okay, why don't I start my own business? I've got nothing to lose. All I have to lose is my time. And if I give it a try for a year and it doesn't work, then I'm going to find a job. That's basically how I started. And as soon as I started in 2010, instantly I felt like, oh, this is great. The freedom to choose who you want to work with, the freedom to choose your own strategy, the speed of decision making. And I absolutely loved that. On the other hand, of course, there's a shadow side because I started and I didn't have any clients. So when I started, all I started to do was talk to people like, hey, how are you? It's been a long time. I would love to know how you're doing. And I would like to update you on the fact that I started my own business and I'm so excited. And that's basically it. That's all I did. So I didn't try to sell anything. I was just, catching up with my network. And there was no strategy behind it at all. I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. I was just like, I'm going to give it a go. And I'm just going to go with whatever my gut feeling tells me. And it worked. It worked because I started talking to people and they said, oh, that's great. Oh, you're offering this service. Great. I want to hire you. I'm like, oh, okay. That's great. So, it wasn't like a huge dream and intention or something very strategic. I just went with it. And I thought, I have nothing to lose. I only have an experience to gain. And I'm going to wait and see what happens. And that's now 12 years ago, over 12 years ago.
Yeah, Tatiana, I don't know if anything jumped out at you there, but what I love to hear, and I have to agree with you, Nicoline, is the element of freedom that we have as entrepreneurs, and I think it's something that and jump in anyone else as well on this, but it may be something that is fearful for some people, but once you've experienced it, then going back into the corporate world, I think would be quite a difficult transition to make, that step back into it, because
Yeah.
it opens up so much more when you
Yeah.
are making. And I think one of the shadow sides also, I think, is just sometimes working alone, which is why your network then becomes a really critical, important part of
Yeah.
sustaining you.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that? I mean, you mentioned about just talking to people, but how about networking in general as you've evolved in your business and it's grown? How
Yeah.
important has networking been for you?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, like I said, I had no strategy at all when I started. I just went with it, and I went with the idea, and I thought, you know, I know myself, I know what I can do, and I'm just going to wait and see, and I'm going to follow my instinct and my gut feeling. The downside of that is that you don't have a plan, you don't have a structure. And of course, you know, I started following people, especially online, because that was starting, like Twitter was a thing in 2010. And there were so many people talking about strategy and goal setting. And at some point I was like, yeah, I need that too. I need goals. But it didn't work for me at all. But the downside of, you know, of the freedom is that you have so many things to choose from. And it's very hard to choose, like, what's the right path? I didn't know. I had no clue. And like you said, you know, the downside of having that freedom is also working alone. And for me, after 2 years of after starting my business, I felt incredibly lonely, because yes, I did the networking, but I would say it was more on a superficial level of, okay, hey, how are you doing? How's your business going? Da, da, da. And that was basically it. And after 2 years, I really got lonely in my business. And at that time, we had the financial crisis hitting us quite hard. So I saw my business, like my number of clients went down, and I didn't have that much work. So I was alone in my home office. And at some point I was like, who wants to hire me? And of course I did the networking, but it was a superficial way of just connecting with people. And again, there was no plan. So I went back to corporate. So I did a project for a huge corporate. And like you said, it was really hard to step into that again, because I had become so used to the freedom to choose, the freedom to choose who I wanted to work with. And when you're back in a corporate job, you cannot choose who you want to work with, and you cannot choose the kind of tasks that you do. So going back to the corporate job, but for me, the main reason, and I really want to be honest about that, was money, first of all, because I wanted to have a steady income again, because at that point I didn't have it, because I didn't have that many clients anymore. And the second is I was craving for colleagues again. I wanted to be around people every day, because I was alone in my home office, and I was like, who wants to hire me? Who wants to work with me? So at that point, what I didn't get was that I needed a network, to really build a network of business friends that I can talk to and that I can call whenever I'm like in a bad place of, oh, who wants to hire me? Because I think we all have those bad days that we doubt ourselves, and we're like, oh, what is it that I do? It's not that special. I don't really make a difference. But especially when you have those bad days, you need people around you that you can call or just have a Zoom call with. But at the time, I didn't know that. So I found out the hard way, because after 9 months of being back in that corporate job, I was like, this is killing me. Even though I love having colleagues, I love having a steady income again, I hate it that I'm like in a pattern and in a way of working and working with people, even with people that I don't like. So at the time, after 9 months, I was like, I need to get out of here. I really need to get out of here. So, and that's what I did. So that was a huge leap of faith. But then I had learned my lesson about the networking bit, that I was like, okay, I need trusted business friends around me that I see on a regular basis, that I can call whenever I feel down, that I can call whenever I feel like, oh, no one's going to hire me. So, and especially after holidays, I don't know about you, Mary Jane, but when I've been on a holiday, that's what I loved about a corporate job. When my first day at work after a holiday, you know, those coffee machine chats that you're like, oh, you look so good. Where was your holiday? Oh, you were in France. Oh, wow, that's great. Tell me about it. I missed that. So when my first day after a holiday, I was back in my home office again. And then I was like, okay, how was your holiday? Yeah, it was great. So, and that's
Talking
what I
to the
did.
walls.
Yeah, and that's what I did after I came back from that corporate job. Now, every time when I have been on a holiday, I plan a live meeting with a business friend after my holidays, straight after my holidays. So I have a day or half a day to catch up with people. And that's my best start after a holiday again. So I learned my lesson over the years with, okay, this is what I need and this is important. So, and then, you know, networking became very different. And then networking became, having a group of business friends around you, and really trusting one another by sharing the real stories and not just the success stories. Oh, I have another client, or oh, look at me, I'm on this stage, or I'm on a podcast, or which is all great. And of course, we all want to celebrate people who get successful. But I think it's so crucial that we support one another when things are bad, or when we feel like, oh, nobody likes me, nobody loves me, I don't have any clients. We need other people around us who see the magic in us and who are able to kick our butts, like, oh, come on, you know, you can do better. I know, I believe in you, come on. And that's why we really need those friends around us, business friends, as I call them. And we need to spend time to build that network. So in that sense, networking has absolutely changed, like before my corporate job and after.
Yeah, it definitely changed the dynamics of how you work. Yeah. Tatiana, anything to jump in with?
Yes, I thank you, Nicoline, for sharing your experience. I think there's a number of things that I would like just to highlight on the things you told us, because I think they're really valuable. One of them is, you mentioned that you know yourself and you knew what you can do. And I think that is such an important starting point when we set ourselves as entrepreneurs, is to know who we are and what we can do, because that is it that starts and drives what comes next. And I think that sense of awareness, if you are, and I will talk to the audience in Broadway, they might be listening to us. If you don't know yet, maybe that's task number one. Just go out there and talk to people that work with you and can give you that feedback, and it can be the friends that Nicoline you had that told you should start a business.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And what, like you said, you know, we need to know what we're good at, especially when we're service providing entrepreneurs. We really need to know what we're good at. And ever so often, and I get, because I work with people who never see their own magic and their own gold. We need other people to highlight that for us. Like, you know, this is what you are really great at, and this is your magic, and this is your gold. And because we have a blind spot, we are used to it. Like, yeah, this is normal. Anyone can do this. No, not anyone can do it. So whenever you think that very thought, like, oh, anyone can do this, that's a red flag from now on, that you really need to be aware that it's not a common thing. It is your unique talent. And if you have trouble spotting your own talent, hire someone or talk to a friend or a colleague that you worked with. But it's my experience that you need other people around you to highlight that for you. Definitely.
Nicoline, it brings me to mind that a number of years ago in a training that I was following, and one of the exercises that we had to do was exactly that. We had to ask 4 or 5 people from either work colleagues or family members with a list of attributes, qualities, and we had to do it ourselves for ourselves, the top 7 out of 24, and they had to rate us, the person as well, rate me in this case. And it was so fascinating to see what others saw in me that I did not see in myself. So I think, Tatiana, yeah, it's a really good point, that there's a self-awareness of what our skills are, what our attributes are, qualities are, values are, getting that information for ourselves as we're starting on that journey towards entrepreneurship, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is always a common misunderstanding for people between what it is that makes them special and unique. And I think it has 2 components. And one is like the skill set that we have and the talents that we have. And the other is like a personal branding aspect. That is what makes us unique. But it starts with our skill set and with our talents and the things that we are naturally good at without even noticing. And then, of course, there is the other aspects of what makes us unique, in the sense of what makes you different, what makes you stand out from the crowd. And for me, the example is that I love cold water swimming. I love to be in the sea, even when the sea is only 5 degrees centigrade. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I started it a year ago. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm addicted to the sea. So I use that in my branding. But the other aspect of what I use is my skills when it comes to coaching, with running a business, with human design, and my intuition. Those are my things that make me stand out. And I think it's really important that when you start your business, you are aware of these 2 different things, because a lot of people talk about, oh, be yourself and be authentic. And I remember when I started, I was like, be myself. Yeah, like what? What do I need to share about myself? I don't even know. Do I need to share that I speak 5 languages? How is that special? I don't know. So it's really important to separate those 2. And for the I would say for the skills and the talents, it's very, very useful to have other people around you to help you highlight those things that you are used to. And when it comes to the personal branding aspect, you know what kind of things you like. So for instance, if you're into, I don't know, I'm just going to give you one of my guilty pleasures. I love Outlander on Netflix. I absolutely love it. So that's, that could be a part of my personal branding. Like, I love Outlander. And there are so many people out there who love it too. And they're like, oh yeah, I love it too. And then you have an instant connection. But it's important to separate the 2.
Yeah, and I'm curious if you would think back to when you started and you had no strategy and you really had no idea of branding, networking, etc. What would the difference have been for you if you had taken on a business coach like yourself and like Julie are? how would that have helped you in terms of
Oh my goodness,
developing?
it would have saved me so much time and so much self-doubt and so much, I would say, testing and trying and frustration. Like, oh, people tell me that I should be doing this and it doesn't work. So it would have saved me a lot of time, a lot of time. On the other hand, it gave me great experiences. I think it was Einstein who said, you know, I didn't fail. I just found 5,000 ways that don't work.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
I did.
Edison, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's
Yeah.
Edison. Yeah,
Edison,
that's right.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
Einstein, it's Edison. So, and that was the thing for me too. You know, I tried so many things and I found so many ways that didn't work. So all I got was experience, but it would have saved me a lot of time if I would have hired someone from the start, or be more aware of these dynamics at the beginning of my entrepreneurship. Like,
Yeah.
Because when you start, there are so many things that you need to do. You need to set up your business, you need a website, you need to start networking, you need business cards, you need, you know, a LinkedIn profile, you need so many things, and you can be like all over the place, so you don't have a clue what to do first. And for me, I'm a perfectionist. So I was very much focused on my website first. Oh, I need a website. I need a website. I didn't need a website. What I needed was a clear image of, this is who I am. This is what I can do. And this is my message. If I had had that as a starting point, it would have been so much easier. And it would have saved me a lot of time. And it would have brought in a lot more clients and money.
Yeah, earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
earlier on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because in Tatiana, with the platform with Wize Move Society, and Deborah, you're part of that as well, the program, with our, you know, entrepreneurship, experienced entrepreneurship program that we're going to start running as of next week, actually. But the focus in this program is just to get people comfortable that they have the mindset to actually become an entrepreneur, you know, because I think a lot of people are blocked from the fact that, well, you know, I've never done that. I've never, you know, I've always had a career, you know, in corporate or in an organization. And it's hard for me because I, together with Renee, my husband, I've been really 40 years since that I was in the corporate world. And that was very brief. I had a more extended nursing career in the military, but a couple of years in pharmaceutical sales, et cetera. So I had a very brief window before we became consultants. And so I've always been, I think, an entrepreneur, you know, and had that mindset that I can do it. Just show me the way and I'll do it. But I think this has to be a real struggle. And Julie, maybe you can come in because you deal with all kinds, because I know some of the clients you have as well, but mindset has got to be crucial, I think, here. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. I actually just put in the chat, I found the transfer very hard from corporate to entrepreneurship, which was very, I think, that's something I still battle with myself, that leap over was so hard. I get very frustrated with myself. I always saw myself as this entrepreneurial style corporate leader, and I've never fallen flat on my face quite so hard. But that's another story, going back to your question, Mary Jane. But you know, one of the things that I recognize is a lot of the people that I work with are very young, female founders. And one of the things that I think they find very hard is how they speak about themselves, how they introduce themselves in a network. So they always seem like they're apologetic when they're asked what they do. You know, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also, you know, I've got my kids and I'm still living a life. And I'm not even exaggerating how that response comes. And I think going back to this identity, Nicoline, that you're talking about for younger people who really experience, I think, a lot of pressure from society. I know they're not over 50, but the other side of the scale, where they're expected to do A, B, and C. And I've actually just written a blog on it, but about how you turn up. I think there is a huge challenge with that, with young people being able to express and to position themselves strong in who they are and what they do. Just listening to your experience, I totally agree, about who they are, but for younger people, it's like they're making excuses. I have to teach them to talk short, about who are you? It's a real challenge.
Yeah.
They come in quite insecure about it and a bit embarrassed.
Yeah. And I fully agree with you, Judy. And I also think that we have, as a society, we have such a weird idea of success. And especially younger women. And I mean, that's how I experience it. When I was in my 30s, I really had this idea of, oh, I need to be successful. I need to be a good mom. I need to be a great wife. I need to be a wonderful friend. I need to be a very nice daughter and a sister. And so I had all these roles, and I found it so exhausting to do it all really well. And I think we all have, and especially now with social media, we see people online sharing their successful lives, and especially younger people are so sensitive to what they see, and like, oh, I need to be that too. So I need to run a business and I need to get to 6 figures because otherwise I'm not successful. And I need to be a great mom, and I need to homeschool my kids when needed. And I mean, it's exhausting. Well, I think it's so important that we share the real story of, you know what, I didn't have a plan. And sometimes I still don't have a plan. Of course, I have more of a strategy now, but sometimes I just follow my gut and I do whatever I think is right. And we're all trying. And
I think it's a lovely reminder, just to give you feedback. It's a nice reminder. I think even at 50, I'm describing a 25-year-old, but actually I think I'm probably writing the letter to myself as well.
Yeah.
I'm over 50. Why am I doing this? Should I be concentrating on looking after my mum, or, traveling the world while I still can walk? If there are battles even over 50, I find.
Yeah, you're right. You're
And yet-
right. Yeah. Yesterday I worked with a client who said the very same thing. And she said, oh, I'm half Italian and I hate cooking, and I shouldn't, because I'm half Italian. People expect me to love cooking. I was like, why?
I love that. The expectation with national culture is a disaster for many of us. Definitely for me, in terms of dancing and playing football.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that highlights, and I think that's what we bring as senior entrepreneurs, is a level of experience and confidence that a younger person hasn't yet developed in themselves. And I think this is something that for anybody who's listening, that heading to 50 or is already over 50 years of age, that you're bringing a wealth of experience and knowledge into whatever product or service you're going to develop, that you feel that the world needs and you want to offer. Don't underestimate that, would be my advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so vital that we realize that our life experience is something that we cannot teach others, because we have learned it along the way. So women over 50 have this great experience, and especially within corporate. I mean, I think that's another misunderstanding that so many people have, that you cannot be entrepreneurial in a corporate job. You can. You totally can. So and that's the funny thing. When I started, I had this weird idea of being an entrepreneur. When I saw an entrepreneur, I'm a very visual person. So when I saw an entrepreneur, it was like, okay, that's a guy in a business suit, and he's talking about the Dow Jones index, and he's exchanging business cards at networking events. That was my definition of an entrepreneur. And I was like, that's not me. That's not me. It's definitely not me. because I know nothing about the Dow Jones and I hate networking. But the thing is, I love networking. I found out that I love networking because I love people, but I love networking in my own way. And that's what my life experience brought me, that I love connecting to people. I love other people to connect. So, and Mary Jane, you know this, I love introducing you to other people. And that's my way of networking. And I think that's really important that we as women over 50, we realize that we have this freedom to shape things our own way. So we can reframe success. We can reframe networking. We can reframe running a business. Running a business doesn't mean that you have to work 80 hours a week. It doesn't mean that. You can reframe it and like, okay, I want to do it like 3 days a week. You're still an entrepreneur. And I think when you're over 50, you're more, well, potentially you're more relaxed with the idea of there are other ways than just the one or the two ways that we see, especially online in the online world of, okay, this is what success means. No, what does success mean to you as a person? So it could be that when you're over 50, success means to you that you have a work week of 4 days and the other 3 days are days that you can spend, I don't know, on the beach or in your garden. So, and that's what we need to do, I think, as women over 50, and especially when you start your own business, to think about what does success mean to me? It doesn't mean like 6 figures or multiple 6 figures, but that's one definition of success, but it's not the definition of success. And I think that's important. We as women over 50, we can reframe every definition.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear, even I think because we're all women here in this group, but what we're saying is also applicable for men. If we are inclusive,
For sure.
you know, the same principles and things apply. Yeah. Ravi, please, jump in.
I just wanted to say something in relation to what Julie said and also Nicoline. I really love what Nicoline says about keeping it real and about sharing the real story, the ups and downs, and not only when we're doing well, but also when we're not doing very well. And what Julie mentioned about young people struggling, I think that makes it even more important that we share the real story, because whether we like it or not, we are an example. They look up to us for ideas, for wisdom. So if we share the real story, we also support them in the times when they're down to realize actually it will get better. Because I really, I'm an advocate for mental and emotional well-being. And I think if we are sharing a false story, we can make young people even more depressed because we're not sharing this real struggle that we face as business owners, because life is not always up. Sometimes it is down. Sure. So I really, I support so much this idea of just being real, talking about success in real terms and what it means to each person in order to give the right image out there and not a false story about what having your own business is like.
I love this about you, Ravi, and you write the articles and posts that you place on LinkedIn, which come into my feed on a regular basis. I guess because I've liked and commented on you, but it's always very real. You're talking language that all of us can identify with, and thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. And Deborah,
I just wanted to say something on that. People are hungry for acknowledgement that they don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I too, Nicoline, am a perfectionist, and I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
And I am seeing, maybe a lot of us are seeing more and more of the scrolls on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok about people being imperfect, and it's a sigh of relief because we're making ourselves into a box that we are, but we also have the hard times, and calling out to our friends and having our networks. I know when I had a friend who said, this is years ago, she said, I'm going to start a business. And I thought to myself, wow, she's ballsy. It was so far away of a thought at that particular time, but not anymore. Not anymore. Becoming an entrepreneur is just a matter of what's my idea and what kind of support can I have. It's so doable, especially with what's just happened in the last 2.5 years. It's brought us out of that box of thinking I can only work corporately, I can only do something, that is a business where I go and work for somebody else. And it's in every single one of us. And yeah, there's so much support out there right now. And especially with this entrepreneurship program that's coming up, Experienced Entrepreneurship Program, it has so many interesting perspectives that someone can come to that course and develop themselves in different layers. So it's a beautiful course to, if you're experienced or if you're not experienced, it's a beautiful course to be able to take and feel like it's going to take me to a place where I'm going to feel really confident.
I love that. I love that, Deborah. And I think with what you said and what Raria said about, people are craving for the real stories. I had a networking event a few weeks ago, because now I love networking. And a few weeks ago, we spoke about the reasons why things don't work yet, and we get frustrated. And I shared my story about one of my huge limiting beliefs that held me back for a very long time, was the idea of not being good enough. And it played out in so many ugly ways, where I constantly felt not good enough, but I never spoke about it because I felt so much shame around that. And when I shared that story, people were like, what? You not feeling good enough? Wow, you're always so confident. I was like, yeah, that's the outside. So
everybody has that. Nobody gets scot-free.
Yeah.
No, you're right on that.
Important that we
Kendra.
share the real story.
Yeah. Yeah. And Paulina, jump in, because I don't think you're anywhere yet near 50.
Closer than you might think.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
42. Yeah. So
All right.
I wanted to join the group because actually I've been thinking a lot about, okay, so like what is the next 8 years and where is it going to take me? And so it made sense to talk to you ladies.
Wonderful.
I actually really resonate with the whole storyline about being more real and sharing the success stories, but also through the lens of the struggle. I definitely personally resonate with those stories more whenever I see it on social, wherever it is that I am on social, and I tend to tune in and follow some of those people way more than the ones that are coming across as if everything is amazing, and because it just doesn't feel like I can see myself in any of those stories. I am someone that I personally want to own both the bad and the good, right? The struggle and the success. And it's always like an up and down. It's never just like a straight across or a straight up. It's always a wave of stuff. So I appreciate that people are starting, it feels like people are starting to be more real and more open about, the spectrum when it comes to entrepreneurship and women in business and all that. So it's exciting.
Yeah,
That excites me. Yeah.
I really do. And I think there's, I see it also in the corporate work that I do, is there's a lot of more emphasis and openness to talk about the things that have gone wrong, to not look at failures as being mistakes, but okay, an outcome that you maybe didn't want, but what did we learn from it? And again, that open growth mindset, which is so critical for anyone, but also really important for entrepreneurs. And Tatiana, I want to go back to you. you know, because you're in the academic world. This is as a far stretch from entrepreneurship. But when you hear these kinds of stories and experiences, how can you see yourself stepping into an entrepreneurial role?
I think an academia more entrepreneur than anyone might think, or the funding bids and the joining together of people in different disciplines that come to work sometimes in one-off projects and then move on. And I think it's interesting how entrepreneurship, like Julie or Nicoline said as well, it's everywhere. It's in our jobs, even if we're in corporate, because we can bring people together and we can bring ideas together. And that is that entrepreneurial spirit. And I think what is important, just to wrap up some of the thoughts that were shared in the group, is this idea of being true to the experience. So our experience is positive and negative, challenging and exciting and so on. And once we start engaging with that, we can develop much stronger identity. So it's that identity that we can present in a shorter narrative, that we don't have to excuse ourselves, that we don't need the brand of a particular company because it's clear to us, and becomes a bit of a preventative to an imposter syndrome. Because if you're only talking about the very nice things, we're covering something under the carpet. And if you're not addressing, it comes back to bite us. So it's an interesting paradox of embracing the good, the bad, and the ugly, make us actually much more stronger as entrepreneurs, either in corporate, in academia, or out there in industry.
Well, it's the adversity that really creates the resilience in people. So we should be embracing it, and managers and leaders should be embracing that their teams are able to take that risk and be curious and okay, maybe it didn't work out, but then as long as you take a learning from it, that it should be embraced and not punished by any stretch. And I think too, I'd like to think that those that are hitting that age, and I even talked to a woman recently in a major telecom company, and at 47, she's been denied. She asked for a transfer for a particular role, and she's been denied, basically told that she's too old to change over completely from this role. And she said, but I've got another, 15, 20 years left in a career, so it's at 47. So I'm going, we really need other options out there. And entrepreneurship is definitely an option for men and women to consider, because you've probably somewhere along the line, you've had an idea of something that you would like to create or be part of, and why not grasp that and move with it. So I really, any last thoughts? Nicoline, come in with anything, any last wise words of wisdom.
Pressure. What a pressure. So the thing is, I think with what you said about there are other options, they will come to you when you're ready. And there is this wonderful saying, when the student is ready, the master appears. And I think that's also the case for entrepreneurship. And in my case, I had people around me saying like, oh, why don't you start your own business? And I had 3 of them around me, and separately, they didn't know. The other person had said the very same thing. But the thing is, when you're ready, you will start considering. And then it's so important to have the right people around you that you can bounce ideas with, like, okay, would that be a good idea? What could I be doing? Because whatever it is that you do in corporate, you can start a business with that. So I think that's really an important thing to realize, that whatever it is that you do now, there is a market for it. And as an entrepreneur now for over 12 years, I have seen so many crazy business ideas. When you would be thinking about it up front, you would be like, what? But there's a business for everything. There's a market for everything. So yeah, like you said, there's always the option of being an entrepreneur. There's always the option of doing it together with someone else. But it's so important to stop waiting for full clarity, or like, oh, I need to have a full 100% waterproof plan. You just need to take a next step, one step. That's all you need. And then the next step and the next step. And I think too many people are used to the corporate world, and it's like, a golden chain for them, like, oh, a regular income, a status, position, and they don't dare to take the leap because they don't have a plan, and they wait for the plan to come. And you don't need a plan. All you need to do is take a next step. And of course, it's helpful to have a plan if you get a lot of security and confidence from having a plan. But it's so important to take a next step. And that's basically all you need. One step, and then a next one, and a next one. And before you know it, if you do that in like 365 days, you will have taken many, many steps towards a dream or a goal or a completely different life.
Thank you for that. Yeah, definitely. Julie, I'm going to move to you.
I think I've very much loved the conversation about how entrepreneurship and corporate can dance well together. I think that's a really good reminder of, especially the role as you want that second career in whatever form to come there. That's a great opportunity, especially with supporting, obviously I was slightly more, for the younger population, but to be clear about what they stand for. I think the dance between corporate and entrepreneurship was my little key reminder of how it can just bring each other so much.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you. Yeah. And again, I'm going to, I think I'm probably saying it a lot, but it's just have that open mindset, that the I can attitude. And by taking those steps, whether it's our experienced entrepreneur program, or it's with a business coach or whatever, but it will come together. It will come together. Raw, we got last thoughts?
I just thought about something else that Nicoline shared early on about supporting each other. And the fact that it can be a lonely place. And I think that's really important. Let's support each other. So for example, the way I think about it now is that every coach, counselor, therapist out there is already my colleague. Some I've met, some I'm yet to meet, but they are all colleagues, and we support each other, and to be in a place where we're prepared to give first before we set out there to get. That's something I just wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Deborah, I'm not sure if you have to run, but
I do have to run, but there's so much richness in this conversation. I've got all these ideas. The two that come out is that, Nicoline, when you were talking about, people get jobs and then they with the 47-year-old, well, that's the idea of shifting our perspective of when things like this happen, it's actually a gift. And to look at the obstacles, whenever there's an obstacle, is that perhaps it wasn't for you, and there's something better just around the corner, and to be patient and to trust that you've already got your trajectory already set out in a way. But if you like to goal set with flexibility, so the universe can bring you all these gifts and be surprised by them, take the gifts and honor the gifts. And that's like, then it makes it so blissful. Because it's like, wow, I hadn't even thought about it, but it's really phenomenal idea or person or whatever is happening. So it's like, this is such a great topic. Bye for now. I have to-
Hi, Deborah. You've got to go to your business. And Paulina, a last thought from you before I move to Tatiana to close. Yeah.
I just love being in the company of other women doing their thing. So I'm just happy that I thanks for introducing me. I guess it was through you all and PWN and Francia actually. And it's nice to see these faces, and I'm open to wherever this is going. I'm not sure where it's going, but I'm open to it.
Yeah. Well, you're on a journey, and I know you're going to have fun with it. I know you a little bit now, but I know you're going to have fun with it and be successful. And Tatiana, to wrap up.
I have to say that I'm not going to say something very philosophical, but I'm going to pick on something that Nicoline said that really resonated with me. If you think we're afraid of networking, it's because we're not networking the way we like. We might find there's a different way that we can do it really nice and naturally. So I would, my message to anyone listening is go try what works for you, because it's lovely to connect with others.
Yeah.
Yeah, really nice, really special. And I'm looking at the time, so just to wrap up, and please, if you're not a member, and for anybody listening to this after we will be on YouTube with this, and also on podcast channels as well. Join us, the Wise Move Society, and become a member, support, again, like we're talking, and networking with others that are also looking for support in their lives. So yes, I hope we will see some of you, because a few are, I know, in this group, members, but join us. And I think you'll really find that we have a lot to offer in terms of programs and support that will benefit you. All right, I'm going to close off, everybody. Thank you, Nicoline. A big thank you from my heart. Okay.
For being here.
Yeah, Robbie, it was so wonderful to see you. Julie, nice to see you again. Paulina, I'll see you on Tuesday, I hope. Nicoline too. Yeah, okay.
Bye.
Tatiana, bye.
Bye.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye.